Hey everybody, and welcome to the Chit Chat. Today we're going to look at the setup of the brand new game, the Gaia Project. This is a game in the same universe as Terra Mystica. In fact, it even says a Terra Mystica game on the box. But it's a big game, there's a lot to do in setup, and we thought it would be really helpful to show you a little bit about how to do that here today. We're going to mostly pan down, so here in a few seconds, you're going to be seeing the table and my hands for the majority of this video. I'll still be talking over this, and we're going to show you the setup as it goes. Alright, now that we're looking at the table, we're going to start setting up the board. The first part that we're going to set up is the modular tiles portion of the board. In a Gaia project, there's basically going to be multiple hex-based tiles that you're going to set up in each game. This is going to create a unique layout for each of your gameplays. So, first things first, each of these tiles is going to have a number on it. So, as you can kind of see in the camera here, each of these tiles is numbered, and that's going to help you remember what position to place them in. Now, for this video, I'm going to do the recommended starting setup. However, in the majority of games, you're going to be able to set these however you'd like. You can flip them over. This one is blank on the back, but most of them have two sides. You can also spin the tiles. The orientation won't really matter. As long as you set them up in a similar grid, it's going to work. So, first things first, we're going to place the one tile here. We're going to set up for a two-player game. So instead of setting up in the full grid, we're going to then place the 5 tile next to it. 5 tile is going to be offset a little bit lower, so it's going to set like that. We are then going to place the 2 tile below. The 2 tile is going to match up. There are going to be a couple of stars on the board here. This is going to really help you, especially in a 3 and a 4 player game. You're going to be able to set the core of the board up by matching the stars. We're then going to set tile 3 here in the middle. Again, matching the stars on tile 2. Tile 6 off to the far edge. And as we slide these forwards a little bit, we're going to place tiles 4 and tiles 7 below them on the table here. We're just going to go ahead and scoot this all out so we have the board set up on the table. Now, that's the initial board setup. We're going to move over and we're going to set up the research and technology track. Okay, now we've moved over to the research and technology track board. This board is going to track a lot of the technologies that you're going to do throughout the game. So first things first, you're going to take each player token and you're going to place 1 player token of each color on the first level of each track. So I'm going to go ahead and populate this here with yellow and red, which is going to represent the Xenos and Hadsek Halak factions. So these are the 2 recommended factions that will be playing in a 2-player game, and therefore that's what you're going to be seeing here today, just because it's the easiest to represent a 2-player game for these setup videos. A 4-player setup is going to work the same way. There are going to be only a few minor differences, and that is primarily going to be to the setup of the board that we showed you a few minutes ago. The last 2 player tokens, you're going to see that there are still 1 remaining red and 1 remaining yellow token, are going to go on the number 10 of the score track. So not only is the technology board going to represent your technologies, it's going to represent your score. Next thing you're going to see is we're going to go ahead and set up our standard technology tiles. So our standard technology tiles are going to be placed in these spaces along the board. There are 5 spaces directly below a research track or a technology track, and then there are 3 spaces that are farther below and kind of offset. In these 3 spaces, there's also 1 color for each of the technology tracks, which is going to represent that when you take one of those tiles, you can move up in any track. That doesn't matter for the setup, however. You're going to be looking for the standard technology tracks that have this symbol on the back. So I'm going to make sure I get this close to the camera here. There's a slight green chip added on the back. So a standard technology tile that is not one of these will not have that green marker on it. What we're going to do is you're going to take all the ones with the green markers and you're going to shuffle these up. These represent 1 from each of the available types. You're then going to, at random, place these below each of the technology tracks, so that it gives you a good and easy way to randomize this each game. Now, you're also going to have multiples for these. So I've already separated them out up here at top, and you're going to then place the remainder of the stacks in their appropriate locations. As so. So bear with me as I finish this part here. Shouldn't take us very long. Prepared pretty well for this one. And as we get the standard technologies out there, the board will start looking a little more full. Now that we have the standard technologies here, the terraforming track has something a little bit special to it. And the terraforming track is this brown track over here. It's primarily what's going to be used to change and make planets habitable. So there's also a basically a Federation tile that's a little bit different than the other Federations. So this Federation tile is going to be represented by 3 small icons, and it's going to be 1 knowledge icon, 1 mining icon, and 1 icon for 2 gold. This one's special, and it's going to specifically go at the very top of the terraforming track. Now, you see we still have 5 spaces, or 6 spaces rather, here for advanced technologies. And the advanced technologies are going to be the blue technologies. They're a little bit smaller than a initial technology track or an initial technology tile that you're seeing down here. They also have the blue backgrounds. There are far more of these than you're going to use in each game. And you're going to shuffle the entire stack on these. Once you've shuffled the entire stack, again at random, you're going to deal 1 out at the top of each of these technology tracks. Now there's a space for them, and they kind of have a small chip that fits in them. They also have some symbology off to the bottom that tells you you're going to have to flip over a Federation tile to utilize them. Once you've done that, you have your entire research board set up, and you're ready to go to the final scoring board. So let's move over to that, and we'll keep on with the video. Alright, so here we have the final and round scoring board. It's this round circular board here that has a planet type ring around it. These planet types are just aesthetic, and you're not actually going to do anything with them during the setup. So to set up this board, you're going to see markers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 here. This is basically going to be a round tracker, and you're going to need to apply a round scoring chip to each of these. The round scoring chips are these small wedge-like chips that you see here, and you're just going to shuffle these up, and you're going to place one of each of them at random on your setup board. And this is going to represent the amount of points that you can gain during each round. And as you cross each round, you're going to remove it, flip it over, or place it back into the box. You only use 6 each time, and there are extras. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to be shuffling the final scoring tiles, and you're going to be taking 2 of them. So these are a little bit differently shaped. They're going to fit on this slot in the board. So you see there's 2 tracks for them, represented by a tracker that goes from 1 to 10. And you see they score 18 to 6 points depending on how well you score. So I've already shuffled these out. We're going to go ahead and place 2 of them onto the board like this. Now, you're also going to place trackers for each of the factions on this board. You're going to start out with them at 0. And there's going to be 1 on each of the tracks. So we have red and yellow tied at 0 for these at the start of the game. This will change after we do some of the remaining setup, but for now that's where we're going to be. Now, in a 2-player game, there is a minor difference here. At the bottom of each of these final scoring tiles, and it's a little hard to see, so I'll bring it up closer to the camera, you're going to see in this corner a small number in the green field. This is going to represent a neutral player. So in a 1 or 2-player game, there's going to be a neutral player, and they're basically going to already be on the score track. So for example, this one, the neutral player will score 6, and on this one, the neutral player will score 11. Since the tracker doesn't go to 11, we'll place 1 on 10, and we would end up placing 1 on the 1 as well. That's how we would set up the final scoring board. At this point, we're going to move to the player boards, and we're going to show you how to set those up as well. Alright, now as you can see, we're fairly tight in on the Xenos' player board. So this is going to be the yellow player's player board. And to set up for the yellow player, what you're going to be needing to do is you're going to need to be populating each of these spaces with a building of a given type. So the bottom spaces will be populated with mines. This will be populated with trading posts. This will be your planetary institute. These will be your research station, and these will be your academies. So I'm going to start populating that here now, so you can get a little bit of an idea of how this would look. I'm not going to populate this entire board. We're going to cut over to a completed board here in a second, but I'm going to give you an idea of how this would be done. So we've gotten some of this populated. You're going to have a couple of other things to do in the setup. This board is going to allow you to receive 1 quantum intelligence cube at the first of the game. Quantum intelligence cubes being these small green cubes here. You're also going to place power in the buckets as represented. So Xenos start out with 2 power in their bottom bowl and 4 power in their second bowl. And that's all the power they start out with. There's no power that's placed in the Gaia section of the board at this time. So if you'd like to see a completed player board, we're actually just going to slide one over here. And we'll have a completed player board represented in the frame. Now there are a few other things. You're going to place trackers for the majority of your resources in this game. The trackers are going to represent gold, and there's always going to be 1 on the 15 and the 0. And as you can see, there are small highlights in the spaces indicating that you should place those tokens there. In addition, you have a white token for your ore, and it'll be placed in space 4 for the Hadzak Halas faction. This can be different based on your faction, but all of the factions that you'll be playing in your initial games will be starting out with 3 knowledge, and so that's going to be marked and placed here. So that's it to set up the player boards. There's really nothing else you need to do with these. There also will be a few tokens that set off to the side, however, and that's going to be your Gaia forming stations, which you don't start the game with. At least most factions don't. And you're also going to have satellites. So your satellites are just these small cubes in your color. You're going to keep them next to your player board, but you don't need to do anything with them now. So from here, we're going to back up off the board just a bit. We're going to do a pretty far shot of the table, and I'm going to show you a few of the smaller things that you're going to need to be setting up for your pools. Then we're going to wrap up, and you can feel free to ask any questions you have in the comments. Alright, now that we have a wider view again, we're going to cover some of the very small remaining pieces in the board. You're going to have Federation tokens. They're going to be 6 stacks of Federation tokens, and you're going to need to separate them by type, placing them with the green side face up. This can go face up somewhere next to your Research and Technology board, as it's going to be the primary means in which you're going to interact with them. Then, you're going to need to have a stack of unused power, which are going to be the purple discs within the game. You're going to need to have a small stack of green Gaia planets right here. A small stack of achievement tokens, or I believe they're called, we'll call them Federation tokens here. Even though they're not Federation tokens, they just represent when you create a Federation. We'll place these up to the top of the board. You're also going to have a pool or a stack of quantum intelligence cubes, and your pool and stack of quantum intelligence cubes are just these green plastic cubes, and they can set anywhere off to the top of your board. You're then going to have your round bonus markers. Round bonus markers are these long skinny markers here. They're going to have top and bottom actions on them, and you're going to be selecting from them each round. In a 2-player game, you're going to utilize 5 of them. In a 3-player game, you'd utilize 6. Basically, all you're ever doing is shuffling and selecting the number of players plus 3. So for a 2-player game, again, I'm going to take 5 of them out. I'm going to place them off to the side of the board where each player can see them. Now, I don't have a whole lot of room here, so I'm going to slide them up to the top of this board. The remainder can be returned to the box. In addition, you're also going to have a small stack of action markers down here. I like to put them close to the bottom of the research and technology board because this is going to be the primary position that you're going to use them on as you take them and utilize them to cover power actions when they've been taken during a given round. There are cases in which players are going to have individual actions, but it's just easier to keep them next to this board. That's the setup for this part of it. We're going to go ahead and pull back up to me, have some final thoughts, and then we'll wrap up. Alright everybody, that's going to end the setup for Gaia Project, a Terra Mystica game. Hopefully that's helped you get into your first game of a Gaia Project. I hope you enjoy it, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below the video, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a great day.